I wanted to piggyback on some of the topics I brought up in the previous video, and that is related to relationships in general. And I want to talk about some of the rebuts and some of the comments that are often made when it comes to relationships and some of the issues I might have mentioned in the context of this gentleman that I was talking to. Now, the first issue and the primary issue I want to tackle in this video is this issue that conflicts and stress in relationships only emerge when people are unwilling to make compromises. That is to say, the man, usually, is too selfish in his desires and needs, and therefore needs to make concessions. Now notice how I'm distinguishing between compromise and concession. This is an actual distinction. It is real. It exists. But many times, in particular women, don't view it that way. But before we get to the distinction between concession and compromise, let's talk about the nature of the beast, the nature of nature itself, the nature of human male-female relationships. Despite what popular culture would tell you, men and women are fundamentally different, very, very different in their behaviors, in the things they enjoy, in the things they gravitate towards. And therefore, given these differences, it is an absolute given they're going to be different within a quote-unquote romantic relationship or marriage. Women will behave differently, men will too. However, in the mainstream, this would be described as shocking. And really, when conflicts arise in male-female relationships, they are not always, but are typically different from the sorts of conflicts that might arise between friends over very specific issues, such as you might have lent a friend some money, but he hasn't paid you back. They are differences mostly in perception, and I would argue that most of the nitpicking occurs from the female side, because women are always looking for something that will reify their own self-affirmation, that will help them feel good about themselves, irrespective of the circumstances. It's the old joke, right? Do I look fat in the dress? And if you say, yes, you do, you're being honest, and you're not supposed to say that. And if you say, no, you don't, you're lying, and she knows that too. It's essentially a catch-22. There's no way out of these situations. And I've talked to many guys who talk about these scenarios where their girlfriends or wives have nitpicked them on issues that they never perceived to be issues. Everything is fine. And oftentimes, this is what precipitates divorce, mind you. And oftentimes, in the perception of the man, everything is fine. It's perfectly okay. And then out comes a bomb. You haven't been doing this, or you haven't been paying attention to this. I'm just not happy with X, whatever it might be. That is very, very common. Because let's be honest, in a relationship, what do men really want? They want sex, generally speaking, and to be left alone. What do women want? Sometimes they want sex, sometimes they don't. They want attention paid to them, sometimes they don't. They want you to read into their every facial expression and every word they state, etc., etc. It's much more complicated, immensely more complicated for a man to navigate these waters. And so inevitably, conflicts will arise, which goes back to my point in the previous video. Men and women don't like each other very much. They're too different. And if they did, they would spend time with each other outside of a relationship, a romantic, sexual, reproductive relationship. But they don't, typically. So given all this, when conflicts arise, and inevitably they will, the call to arms by most people, especially in the mainstream, is that the man needs to make a compromise. It won't be put that way. It'll say relationships are about compromise and sacrifice. The man is inevitably in these situations the person who needs to make the compromise and sacrifice. He is supposed to make, I will repeat the word, the concession or concessions to the female partner in question. But of her, very little is expected. Compromise, in the real sense of the word, would entail that both parties are giving up something, or both parties are engaging in tit for tat. But the reality is that compromise in this context really does mean concession, which in turn means that the man is supposed to give something up for the sake of the woman, but conversely, the woman is not expected to give anything up for the man. That is almost universally the basis of the modern relationship / marriage. The man making endless concessions, giving up things that are integral to his being, whether they be hobbies, pursuits that he enjoys. His friends, oftentimes women, demand that all the attention be lavished upon them, and so they will restrict male friendship, something I've talked about frequently in the past. And then a consequence of all this, these concessions, not compromise, there is no compromise here, is the man diminishing himself and becoming the footstool of the woman. Because due to female nature, women are all about breaking down the resistance of the man. The less tameable a man is, the more appealing he is, at least nominally, provided he fulfills other requirements she might have. And so she goes about breaking down that resistance bit by bit. What can I make him do for me? In many cases, this is the bad boy. This is, of course, the story of 50 Shades of Grey, transforming a sadomasochist, domineering man into a servile house husband. Now, I contend that this is probably the key factor, these endless concessions that make relationships in general, for many men, myself included, untenable. Because it's one thing if both parties are willing to engage in compromise, as would be the case in a traditional business contract, where things are clearly stipulated and both parties need to meet their end of the bargain. But, as I've said, more often than not, that's not the case. The problem with modern relationships isn't just that women are hoeing it up everywhere left and right, be it OnlyFans or TikTok or Twitch, or that they have impossible standards. Sure, all that stuff is true, but even when you're in it, and this is something I really want to drill home to the younger guys, you will be required to reduce yourself. Now, initially, that doesn't seem to be the case, right? Because of the hormones, especially when you're young. The hormones are a powerful cocktail, and they will blind you to what's really going on. But over time, assuming enough time has elapsed, you will notice that the person that used to be will slowly cease to be. This story has been told 1,000 times. You know the story, probably if you're older, the guy who got involved with some woman and all of a sudden he wouldn't hang out anymore. Or he stopped doing X hobby. He didn't meet up on Saturdays or Sundays for rugby or whatever it might have been. That story is very, very common. And this is ultimately, for me, the most important factor in my own going my own way, which is to say, I don't want to make concessions to people and diminish myself constantly. Life is short, oftentimes brutally so. There isn't a lot of time available to us. There's only 24 hours in a day. And if someone demands of me that I have to make concessions left and right, and I can never do the things that I actually enjoy, what's left? What's left in this case is you serving a prison sentence disguised as a relationship, or in the worst of cases, a marriage. And that's simply untenable. And I think that's a lot of what's missing in the average normie man's interpretation of a relationship. He's wondering where the time is going. He's wondering in his own head why he doesn't feel at peace with everything. And this is because he's diminishing himself by making constant concessions about what she wants. And if he asks the question, if he offers resistance, he's called selfish. But her demands are always okay, and she's always on the right side of history, so to speak. And this is almost a universal thing. For example, if cheating occurs when the man does it, he's a bastard. If a woman does it, it's because she was hurt and it was somehow justified. The same thing comes to these so-called compromises that at the end of the day are just concessions of personal diminishment and destruction. Which is why there's rarely an art of compromise in the male-female relationship. It's about endless concessions and getting her off your case, getting her to stop giving you shit for wanting to do what you want to do, for doing things on your own terms, for wanting to just be the individual that you are as a man. And why I think for so many men, especially men going their own way, we have realized that that is simply not an acceptable situation. And I think once you've gotten past a lot of the arguments you'll hear about, what about the sex? Everything else dries up. Who cares about the sex at that stage? If you can't even do what you want to do, that's a problem. Which is why I would say, and I don't want to make this a universal doctrine, it's not just my opinion, that the most important aspect of being MGTOW is the freedom that you receive for it. You can live your life on your own terms, however those terms might be. Anyway, I normally wouldn't make this announcement, but I've noticed that people have been inadvertently unsubscribed to me, and they're missing out on videos. So if you could hit the bell icon and the subscription icon and share the video, it would be much appreciated. And as always, if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. And more importantly, may the gods watch over you. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.